Hey everyone, how's it going? So I want to talk about the FIRE movement. FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. The lessons that I've learned in the past 5, 6 years pursuing it, and what I do differently and what I do similarly. All right. So, and why am I doing this video? I'm not a YouTuber, guys. I just kind of an idea pops in my head. I just decided to talk about it, and I hope it's useful to someone out there. So I was going through my old stuff and I found this piece of paper here that I wrote, I think it was 2016. So this piece of paper, maybe I can get that on focus or maybe not. So yeah, there you go. So just kind of a bunch of progress lines and numbers on them and dates. So that was to track my progress, working forward towards the FI number, the financial independence number. For those people who don't know what those things are, that means you're probably not part of the the cult, the movement, the fire movement, not a cult. So an FI number means once your net worth reaches a certain number, you could, in theoretically, you could live off of the dividends and the rental from your net worth. And that will be sufficient to pay your basic expenses, and then even more than the basic expenses, which is the whole idea of retirement. Retirement is not necessarily an age. You reach the certain age that the government decided that and you live happily ever after, I guess. Retirement's much more like a if you have enough assets and if you consider how much life you have left, how many decades of life you have left, no one knows, but we can, assuming that nothing terrible happens, you can theoretically sustain yourself for those years. So that's what this was. So I remember, let's say fortnightly for us here in Australia. That's every 2 weeks for you guys in the US. I'm not sure if you guys use that term, but fortnightly I will get paid, and it will be such a joy to me to just kind of write down, you know, paint another square in the box. So every tick was like $1,000, and I had these like levels. It's like this is like a level 4, and this is a level 3. Level 3, I think it's here somewhere. So I got this. I got this from a video by Next Level Life. The guy is a YouTuber who talks about financial independence. So you got like these levels from, I think level 0 is like you're have zero independence, so like you have debt and like high interest debt, and you don't have a job, like your child or child with that, but you depend on other person to pay for your home expenses, like your lodging, your food and stuff. You're dependent. You're a dependent person on a parent per se. So you go for like level 0, and then like you emancipate yourself financially. Now you're living on your own, but you have debts to pay. You have to work to pay those debts, like high interest. Like not talking about mortgages, I'm talking about credit card, cars, personal loans, this kind of thing. So as you go from like level 0 to level 10, I think level 10, like the maximum, the peak is something like you no longer work, or so you live off only on the your investment returns, but you live on like lavishly or something like that. Like you like travel is a part of or going out for restaurants and things like that. So you have so much money and you cannot possibly spend it all in one lifetime. Like even though you can afford luxuries, let's say. So I was going through those process. That was never my goal. My goal was always to sit anywhere like right there in the middle. Let's say I have enough to kind of sustain myself without a job, but even if I had to cut back on my creatures of comfort, even if let's say I don't go out anymore, like if I lose my job, but I can still go to Aldi, which is kind of a cheap supermarket here in Australia, and I can still buy food and I can prepare my own food, and there's nothing wrong with it, instead of going to a restaurant. So that was kind of my goal. So the first thing I want to say about having a goal like this, expectations versus reality, and why sometimes things don't go 100% our way is the just the numbers. So the first thing when I opened this box that was in storage, when I saw this thing, it's like I I think I assumed like I would end up in, retired with like $400,000 in the bank or $440,000 in the bank. So that would equate to something like $1.5 thousand a month, and that's not very much. So back then it was theoretically possible to live cheaply with like $1.5 thousand in Sydney. Even like I would probably have to share an apartment, like I have had to have roommates, which is nothing wrong with it. Like millions of people around the world, they all have roommates, and I had roommates until like I don't know last year. I got in so many occasions I had to have roommates. So I assumed I had roommates. I assumed again, I was living like this like frugal lifestyle, just going for the cheapest or go to the cheap supermarket and just shopping for prices, checking prices and things like that. No car, no travel, no dining out, no buying like gadgets or like technology stuff like that. I'll have to like get like secondhand tablets and secondhand notebooks and things like that. It's a totally possible life to live, and what the I know like some people are just gonna listen to this and like, oh, it's a cringe. Like, why would anyone live like that? And I completely understand, and I completely understand. But and I didn't hate my job either. By the way, that the moment that I was pursuing these things, I happened to be in probably one of my favorite companies ever. Like favorite teams, and technology was interesting, and I liked my job. So why did I choose to pursue something like that in the first place, right? That's a good question. I have to think about the question, but I'm not gonna think about it later. I'll talk about that later. So yeah, so this is kind of the idea of like and why it doesn't mean anything today? Because ever since COVID happened and the government came up with all those stimulus plans and like printing money, and then you got supply chain, you got war happening and stuff. So inflation skyrocketed. Like just food, compared to last year, food is 30% more expensive. So this idea that we can somehow come up with a magic number, and once we reach a magic number, all of our financial problems are sorted. So we can somehow see 40 years in the future of whatever is going to happen to the world economy, whatever is going to happen to stock market, I'll be able to sustain myself. That's kind of a it's kind of a silly idea when you think about it. So that I don't think it's at all realistic to think that we can predict the future in that way. Especially if you're like my age or younger. Like I'm 39. So people in their 30s or 40s, to think that we can come up with a figure that will guarantee us, quote unquote, that's that's probably like 10x what people think they need. So if you excuse me, if you think you like myself, I'm talking to myself here, dude. If you think you can 1.5 thousand is enough for you to survive, maybe multiply that by 10. Maybe try to live with like 15,000. Try to reach the goal of getting 15,000 a month. I'm being tongue in cheek, like I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's true. Like we don't know how life will be. Like I might need assistance at like older age. I might need some kind of special treatment for a disease that is not covered by Medicare or private health care. I have to pay out of pocket. So there are all these things that can happen. A family member might go ill, and I will, of course, uh, pay for whatever we can to help them out. So we don't know. So the first thing the thing I disagree with the fire movement, and it took me a while to figure those things out, is we don't know how the future will be, and we can plan as much as we want. We can make all these little pretty pieces of paper with markings on it, but reality will laugh at it in our face. But but I don't want this video to be negative or a bash on the fire movement, because I've learned a lot going through these stuffs. First of all, I learned that I can be happy with so little. Like I was living in an apartment, one bedroom apartment. Before that, I was sharing an apartment with some friends. So I always had my own room, at least, even with roommates. I never shared the same room, but and I was happy. I didn't have a car, but I would take my bicycle and just go to the beach and read a book that I bought used or something, or just some PDF that I downloaded to my tablets. Just let's be honest, like, and I was happy. I was living in this amazing country called Australia. I was living in Sydney with all these like 120 beaches and things. And it was very, very cheap. Like, if I can get public transport, I can go to any beach. And if I can make foods at home and just kind of meal prep, I can just have a picnic by the beach. And what else do you want in life? And then like wine and like you can get for like $1,000 bottle of wine or like $8 bottle of wine. They probably want to get it will be different. It will surely the $1,000 one will be better, but not to the extent that it makes sense to pay that amount. And wine, you pretty much enjoy the company rather than the bottle. If like so there are a lot of things that we kind of society, the modern society has put all these marks, these status marks, say like a gold plattered steak or something. Like human bodies don't digest gold. When we eat gold, we eliminate gold, if you know what I mean. So society has like the level of consumerism has gone so rampant, so out of proportion these days. And I guess previous generations are probably the same, but I was too young. I don't remember. So I can only talk about my generation. So to have a moment like the fire movement that can push back on things and show you, look, you 100% can be happy living like a student or living cheaply. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, so I like the movement for that, and everyone should not everyone, but a lot of people could try that for some time, and it would surely change their views on the world, change their minds. You own less stuff, you're more flexible, you can live anywhere. Of course, if you have kids and if you have a significant other, that would change a bit. Absolutely. I'm 100% with you. If you're single, it's so much easier to do these things. But if you have a partner, that takes some convincing and takes some uh, adaptation. So you're not gonna live like I lived, I'm guessing, or maybe you will. Who knows? So that was my first criticism. Like the numbers on the page mean nothing. That's number one. Two, we have no means of predicting what the world economy will do in the next 10 years, let alone the next 40 years. That was my criticism number one. And then I kind of giving a positive points to FI for this kind of pushback on consumerism. Like if you're naturally a person who spends a lot, like I was for some periods of my life, to go from that to like completely withdraw, where like you spend nothing, you're just spending on food and transportation, and you're scraping and saving every dime. Maybe it's good, maybe it's beneficial for you, like it was for me, you know. Um, so it has its utilities. My other criticism about the fire movement is the investment philosophy. So lots of folks so there are some people who do like real estate. They buy and rent out real estate, like in cash flowing real estate, especially. Other folks do stocks. So they invest something called an index fund. An index fund is basically instead of picking individual companies that you think will do better in the future, you just buy this one stock which has all the companies in the stock market as part of it. So you're buying like small participations of the country's economy per se. And I think the source of all this, if you want to do some reading and get more, be more pragmatic, a bit more rigorous about it, it's the Random Walk on Wall Street. I think that's the book that started it. And there's this other one by John Bogle, which is the Little Book of Common Sense Investing. So if you want to learn about other YouTubers, if you just Google index funds on YouTube, there will be people who crunched the whole the whole book into like nuggets of wisdom and made it into a beautiful video. So YouTube is for me is the best source of information today. So yeah, so a lot of people. So that was me. For instance, every dollar that I owned, I'll just go and buy VAS, which is the Vanguard Australia share. So it's a chunk of the Australian stock market, right? The 300 biggest companies in Australia. And it makes sense. Like intellectually, it makes sense because if you look at track record, if you look at the history of stocks, you'll be way better off by just buying the index than any money manager. Even if you operate in the stock market for years and you know in and outs of companies and PEs ratios and all these like pricing and intrinsic value. You read all the books from Benjamin Graham, and you are a value investor or if you're more of like a Druckenmiller kind of guy, like a whatever. I don't care how much finance background you have or how much you think you know. Usually, and the data has shown that if you just buy the whole index and you just keep it, you hold it for decades. That's the bit which is a bit of a challenge. Buying is easy, hold is difficult. So if you hold for years and years, you will probably outperform all the other managers who are trying to be strategic in buying this company and not that company, right? So that's what the data shows, right? And that's intellectually makes sense. But there's a huge gap between knowing something intellectual on an intellectual level, on a logical level, and um, and the emotions. Because humans, we are made out of emotions. We don't go through life as perfectly rational beings like Vulcans, like Spock or something, which always make the best decision. So one thing is like I noticed when the COVID crash happened and all the stocks been like lost like 50% in price in about like a month or something. It was like a flash crash almost. I noticed like, I was feeling sick to my stomach. Like I remember I didn't sell, but I was having difficulty sleeping, guys. I will remember like waking up and first thing I would do, even like 5 a.m. or something, and just log on onto my home broker and just look at the price. I was losing sleep. I was feeling miserable. I was my sense of humor. No, my what was attitude. I was getting back at people for no reason. I was sour. I was salty about things. So even though like in from an and I read all the books. I should be the one who should be thankful for a crash, but I was not thankful for that crash. And then I learned after I did some digging on some other finance influencers. The majority of people who go 100% in stocks, all in on stocks, they do it when stocks are at the all-time highs. When the market, the whatever, the Buffett indicator is like 130 or something, 140. It's like the worst possible time to be in the stock market. That's when people like myself, like I was bragging about being 100% in stocks because stocks have been the best returning asset for the last 160 years since capitalism started, was like 12% per year. So I was preaching to other people of how they should do with their money. But well, I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit, but at least to myself, I saw myself as some kind of a genius, some kind of a above average intelligence and whatever, for just being realizing that stocks is the best place to be. But coincidentally, that was also the so and then if you look at like because you can see like from I think it's Bloomberg terminal, you can see the net buyers versus the net sellers. So usually, and that's I'm not only talking about me, I'm talking about everyone, but I'm one of them. People who buy more at the worst time and people sell at the worst time. So that's the thing about stocks. And that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you read 100 books. If you read, I read, if I can remember off the top of my head, Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, Unbreakable. That's another money book. I read the Millionaire Next Door, The Richest Man in Babylon, the Little Book of Common Sense Investing, the Australian one, Barefoot Investor. All these books, they kind of is like personal finance category. Like they go through the same. they talk about the same things basically. So like get all of your money, check in the stock market, buy an index fund, low fees, diversified index fund. I just like this Kool-Aid, guys. Even like when I say diversified low, like it comes like automatic, like a trigger in my brain because I've been preached basically. I'm just kind of reading all these books, but they're all confirming what the other book was saying. You know what I mean? So that's why I joking that maybe fire is more of a cult than a movement. So and you have to be burned a little. You have to be burned and feel in your skin how does it feel to look at your bank account and see that the thing that you're working so hard to save and you're kind of checking little by little and just sticking like holding every progress, you know, and then you go one day and see number is half. I think that's the test. That's the test to tell if you're ready for being in the stock market at all. Let alone be 100% stock market, like most of the fire influencers say, right? So this is my criticism regarding investing for when it comes to fire. Yeah, since then I kind of changed my philosophy a bit. I still own stocks. I don't buy the index, even though I know it's not optimal. I should buy the index instead of buying individual stocks. I know that, but it just works better for me, if it makes sense. It's less likely to sell if I know which company that I buy and the company that I want to own. And even then, it's a small percentage of my net worth. This is not financial advice, guys. Talk to your financial advisor. Every person's situation is different. And I'm more into buying real estate now. I'm buying, renting out real estate because it's harder to sell. The thing about real estate is like, if there's a crash, you won't click a button and get off at the worst possible time. Like if you want to sell a house or it takes a month. It takes a month. So that factor for me is super important. It's like I'm kind of protecting against myself here. So I show my difference in opinion with the fire movement when it comes to investments. Even though I know real estate doesn't appreciate, historically speaking, has not appreciated more than stock market. Even though I prefer real estate because if you're gonna be like me and you're gonna sell at the worst possible time, or it's better to just not be in the stock market at all. By the way, I didn't sell at the most possible time, but it was close. It's like, anyways. Um, yeah, I can just talk about that, no problem. So let's go back to that time, right, when COVID happened. So so the stock market lost 50% of its value, and I was feeling bad about it all. So every morning I would just go and check my bank account and check, the value of my investments. Once it broke even, so once the money that I put in was the same money that I got out, I got out. So therefore, it's like, look, I realized that the stock market is not for me. My risk tolerance doesn't allow for something as volatile as the stock market. But and then I saw the opportunity to get out and be like break even. It's like gambler thinking. You sit on the table and you wanna recoup. You wanna get the money back that you just lost and you just keep gambling. So I saw that window of opportunity to get out and just got out. So I didn't lose, but I did lose in terms of opportunity cost. Like because the market kept going up as the government was printing more money and all these stimulus checks and all these things. So anyone who like say invest in tech stocks, they saw their money doubled or crypto, whatever. So I have also my small win stories, so that it's not all lost and sad and sad and gloom here. But yeah, so I didn't absolutely sell the worst possible time, but I did miss out on the growth that happened during the after the crash. So that's what happened. Okay, anyways, not a problem. Uh, yeah, I hope this is useful for anyone, guys. I hope this like I imagine it's someone who's fresher to the stock market. By the way, this is not even considered a crash. If you look historically, the market was only down for about 6 months, but there are periods of like decades, like in the 1970s. which was a high inflation decade in US and in other parts of the globe. The stock market was like just kind of walking sideways for a decade. So like personally speaking, like dude, if I can't handle 6 months of red, how am I gonna supposed to handle like a decade on red? So yeah, so that's fine. That's fine. I can absolutely get reach my financial goals by just sticking to like savings accounts and real estate. You know, it's kind of more boring. It's kind of more there's no huge upside like there are with stocks. You know, there's no like 10 bagger stocks that appreciate 10 times as you know. But it's what works for me. And I think, you know, it was like the oracle. You go into the temple of the oracle. The first thing is like know yourself. You know, I think the job here is like know yourself. Okay, so that's my main criticism. Two criticisms of FI so far. One, this idea you can figure out a number and you will stick to that number. And eh, regardless of the world's economy, regardless of the stock market, you're gonna be fine. That's an illusion, guys. That's my biggest criticism of FI. Second criticism, most people are not cut out to be in the stock market. Most people aren't. Okay, that's just reality, all right? The third criticism with the fire movement, I took a sabbatical last year, so I was kind of tired, you know, post-pandemic, and it was great in one hand, but I was also bored. I was very bored. You know, after like traveling and seeing friends and family, after I've done some like personal projects like entrepreneurship or some like creative work and things, and just reading a bunch of books, at some point I was just like, I want to go back to Australia. I want to go back to do something. I want to see my life evolving. You know, I want to save money. I want to work. I want to be part of a team. I want to travel. I just want to get my car, hop on my car, and just go to a place. I was living without a car back then. So yeah, so it gets a little boring. Like if you're fortunate enough to take like a 6 month sabbatical or 1 year sabbatical, probably by the end of it, you will know what I'm talking about here. So this idea of just like kind of dropping work entirely and just because I'm gonna be honest here, dude, this is my YouTube channel. I don't care. I was just on YouTube, just like maybe half of my day was on YouTube. And then the other half was, oh yeah, there's this computer game that I always wanted to play. Now is my chance. I just gotta, okay, now I finished this game. And then what? And then what? Oh yeah, let's get this book about X and just finish the book. And then what? You know? I was like, oh my God, this is the biggest first world problem ever. Like this guy's complaining that was at home playing video games. Look at this guy, he sucks. No, it is a first world problem. But I tell you, if you don't have a main like a purpose in life, like my purpose was just to relax for a year and to enjoy family post COVID because I thought I would never see my family. That's it. I thought I would never see my parents again. So I wanted to stay close to my parents. So I did for a year. I did for a year. Oh, dude, that's some very personal thing. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to upload that video of these personal kinds of thoughts, but I will. So yeah, so I enjoyed my parents. I enjoyed Brazil. I was like 7 years away, so it was nice to be back in my country of origin. It was nice to do these things, but I wasn't like fulfilling anything. I wasn't being challenged in any way. I was getting fatter. I had no routine. I would just wake up anytime. It's not inspiring, guys. It's not something we should aspire to be or aspire to do. Also, the one I like lean too heavily on the grind side of life, you know. So it's as always it comes with a balance. But this idea of like being young, relatively young, and just don't have a job and like you have to have something big line up after you leave your job. Like I think like let's say you want to start your own coffee or like start a small business. That's probably the way to get off of a 9 to 5 and hop on to something that you'll be even busier or something like that. Because if you're by yourself and alone with your thoughts, and you're staring at the bottom of the abyss of human existence. And you're getting interrupted eventually by entertainment. I'm gonna go to the movies at like a Wednesday afternoon and just by myself in this room and watching some movie that I don't even want to be here. Or if I'm reading this book, but I'm not into it, like I got not, then what? So how am I gonna use this knowledge from this book that I'm reading? Like if I'm not gonna use it somewhere, what's the point of learning something? So yeah, it can be depressing. It can be. I don't think everyone would be. I wasn't like depressed, like clinically depressed, but I was bored. I think the medical term for my feelings was bored. So yeah, FI is boring once you reached it. I wasn't even fired. Like whatever, whatever. I'm still not fired. I still work, by the way. The next immediate goal is to work like 2, 3 years, perhaps to buy another real estate. Hopefully, I'm not too sure. But yeah, those are my thoughts about fire movement. Like it or dislike it, I don't care. But yeah, I think I'll keep this because fire was such a big part of my life for about 5 to 6 years. I'll just keep it and I'll look at it once in a while and just realize that we don't know what we think we know, we don't know. And our mind would change, our mind about things and the way our opinions about things would change over time. So that's a good memento for me to have. All right. Thanks for sticking with me. It's a bit of a long video without any kind of script, and it's kind of all over the place. But yeah, thank you.